Hey everybody, welcome back to another daily drop here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and the topic today, naturally, portal craziness. It's Carolina basketball. Specifically, Carolina needs a point guard. That is not exactly news to anybody watching or listening to this podcast. The Tar Heels need a point guard. They went and got their 7-footer last week with Henry Veesaar. They got a shooter on the wing, someone who's at the very minimum, a nice part in Jonathan Powell. They will get a few more kids from the portal. We thought they might get one committed this weekend. Hasn't happened. He could soon. Probably wants to visit. Don't want to throw that name out there just yet, although we've talked a lot about him. But the reality is, it doesn't matter who else Carolina gets if they don't get a point guard. And if they don't get a point guard that can handle the load, that can run the show in the ACC, that could take the keys at a program like North Carolina in that building with that fan base watching and be the right guy that can find teammates to get them the ball so they can produce. That's what they need. They could use a guy that can score. They could use a guy that can shoot a three, especially if Seth Trimble's going to be at the 2 a lot, because Seth hasn't yet proven he could be a consistent shooter from the perimeter, and Seth will be the first one to tell you that. Of course, we do expect some news this week about some of the current Carolina players as well, but I'm specifically going to speak right now to the point guard situation. And the reality is they've missed on some guys. Now, there's all kinds of reasoning, and we'll find out more as we move through this process. But I'm going to throw some names. There are various degrees of miss here, but clearly Nick Boyd, who came in for a visit on campus, he signed with Wisconsin. That's a miss. Nathan George, at first we heard that they weren't very interested. And then there was a conversation, and then he ends up at Syracuse. I would say that's a miss. I had a Zoom with a guy. I'd say it's a miss. Jalen Lowe, Pittsburgh. We're having a tough time getting information that I can report about how much dialogue there even was there. Don't think there was much. He ended up in Kentucky. I'm not sure I'll call that a miss, but certainly George is, and absolutely Boyd is. Donovan Dent, I would not call him a miss. The kid from New Mexico. He's from the LA area. He has some people there that he trusts tremendously in his life that helped him with his upbringing. So he's at UCLA. That's no surprise. Carolina reached out because you got to reach out to a Donovan Dent. But there wasn't any belief that he would head east. Jacoby Gillespie from Maryland was interesting because he was a teammate of Cade Tyson at Belmont. So first we thought, hey, there's some ties there. Maybe Cade can sell him on something about Chapel Hill. Wasn't a great year for Cade, but I'm sure that there were some positives. And Gillespie's an example. You can go from Belmont to a major program like Maryland and become all Big Ten like he did. But he is a Tennessee guy. Carolina reached out, but he wanted to get back home. He's from not too far from Knoxville, so he is at Tennessee. Silas Damari from Georgia. He's at UConn. There was some communication, didn't go any further than that. And that's kind of where we are with this. There's only been a lot of communication that we know of with one guy. Now, that we know of that we can report. We hear a lot of stuff, but can't even on our boards. We're not going to confirm it or post it on our boards unless it's been fully vetted. Now, I come in here in one of these things, I can start throwing out a bunch of names, which I'm going to do in a minute. But understand, it doesn't mean Carolina has talked to any of these guys. It doesn't mean that there's any interest with them in Carolina or with Carolina and them. We have no idea how this is going to play out. The portal is crazy. But the reality is North Carolina needs a point guard. And even though the portal's open through April 22nd, I believe 6 p.m., and there may be some more point guards to enter, and we've heard that there could be a couple of guys of significance that could enter that would immediately be targets by North Carolina, and Carolina would immediately be a school of interest by those players. But until they enter, You can't count on that. And because Carolina's increased its activity in reaching out to some different guys, I don't think that they are banking on anyone entering that is not yet in the portal that suddenly they'll have on their front doorstep. So let me throw a few names out there as well. Savion Lee from Princeton, everyone's talking about him. Our initial information with him was that there wasn't any interest. There may have been cursory contact. There's contact. People blow it up on Facebook and on different forms of social media. Contact can mean anything. Having dialogue, having a Zoom, that's a different level. Just because you have contact with someone doesn't mean you're really interested in them. You're just feeling things out. Hubert has called this speed dating before. Well, if you go speed dating and you talk to 15 people at lunch one day in speed dating or however it works, I've never done it before, you're not going on dates with 15 people. You're just zooming past, basically. It's drive-by dating. That's what the portal is. However, I don't think that they have completely moved away from him simply because he's an intriguing prospect. There are some people that think he's an NBA prospect, big time. And Carolina needs someone to run the show that can also shoot. And he can do those things. Honor Huff is a kid from Chattanooga. David confirmed that from his agent that he had talked to Carolina. He's a 5'10" kid from Chattanooga. Doesn't have point guard numbers, but he can shoot. I think he was one of the more prolific three-point shooters in the country this year. Don't know how he fits in as a point guard. I have a hard time taking that piece and sticking it in a puzzle that's where the piece is needed. I just don't see it fitting right now. It doesn't mean that they don't bring him in because they need a shooter, but I have a hard time seeing him as a point guard. Now, Evan Maya is a phenomenal sight and I have a ton of respect. David has a ton of respect for the numbers and the grading and everything there. Here are 5 point guards available that Evan Maya ranks. One as a 5-star and the other 4 as 4 stars. Now, keep in mind, Elliot Cadeau, he has one of the top point guards as a 5-star. So the way it looks now, if you were to rank all the point guards that entered the portal, Carolina's going to get someone that was ranked below and in some cases well below Elliot Cadeau. That doesn't mean that they're going to be worse off. Maybe they get somebody that's a better fit. Maybe they get somebody that suits their needs more. Maybe they get somebody that plays off the other guys more. I think you could argue Elliott needed a clean slate, and maybe Carolina did too there. So, yeah, you can compare potential, but maybe that was a square peg in a round hole in some ways, and it was always going to be that way, so he had to move on. Okay, so back on these guys. Dallin Hall from BYU, he's a 5-star. There are only a couple of remaining 5-stars that entered the portal, according to Evan Maya, that are not committed. Dallin Hall from BYU is not. He's a really solid player. I think there's a steadiness to him. He can hit threes. He's not prolific. He's a guy that doesn't turn it over much. He's a steadying type point guard. And I think if you look at Duke this year, the one thing that people that covered Duke would say off the record that was a concern was they didn't have the playmaker. And you saw at the end of the game Saturday night against Houston, they needed a playmaker. They needed one down the stretch to be able to get them a couple of buckets, set people up, get a bucket. Instead, they kept going to Cooper, didn't screen for Cooper, and we saw how that played out. Now, obviously, Duke was a great team all year long, but you got to have a playmaker. Duke really didn't have that traditional point guard type playmaker, and Duke didn't win a national title either. So Hall is a guy that can give you that. He may not be Kenny Smith, but he can give you that. Is he enough for this team? It depends on who else is going to be out there on the perimeter shooting shots. It's about fit, right? All right. 4 4-star players as of the time I'm recording this Sunday night, none of these guys are committed yet. We're going to go Trey Holloman, Michigan State. A lot of people like him. A lot of people watched him here in the NCAA tournament. Gritty guy, 6'2". He's a Tom Izzo point guard, man. What's not to like about that? If Carolina wants to get tougher, bring in somebody from Tom Izzo. You're going to get tougher. I like him. He's a competitor. I think he's the kind of guy that can do the things I was just talking about. Malachi Smith from Dayton. Dayton's a nice team. Dayton should have been in the tournament. They should not have gone to that stretch in the Atlantic 10 that they did. and end up missing out on the NCAA tournament. Santos and some of those guys, pretty good players. Carolina saw how good they were back in November. Malachi Smith's an intriguing player. He's experienced. He could score some. He's got like a 5 to 1.5 or 5 to 2 assist to turnover ratio. Pretty good player. He might fit. Pop Isaacs from Creighton. He's bounced around. He's been at 2 schools, started out Texas Tech, was at Creighton this year. He can score. He can dish. He's got some attitude in his game. I think that Carolina fans would enjoy him. Not sure how he would fit in. He likes to score. So do you want that much scoring from your point guard? This is all about fitting, right? Layering everything. I'm not sure if he scored too much lead guard. Maybe there is no such thing. Who knows? And again, it depends on who he's going to be surrounded by. And also Jaden Pierre from Providence. I do not know much about him. I didn't see Providence play this year, which is wild. It's kind of the Big East is on some of those networks that I don't venture over to very often, although I did watch quite a bit of St. John's because they were intriguing. But Jaden Pierre, 6'2", 12 points a game, 3.2 assists, 2.3 turnovers. Not a great ratio there. So right now I would say the pickings isn't slim, but it ain't great. And Carolina's going to have to find out who they really want and zero in on it and make something happen here. Again, some guys may commit, may enter the portal. And that might open up some opportunities. But Hubert Davis, Jim Tanner, and that staff need to sit down and look at some of these guys and say, okay, we can make it work with this guy. We can also make it work with this guy, and we can make it work with this guy. Let's go full bore after these 3 dudes, and let's see which one we can get, and let's take it, and let's run with it. Because the clock's ticking. I know that I've talked about patience, and last week I did a drop about patience, and I understand the dates when other guys have committed. But this is a position group that is thinner in quality than some of the other ones. You could wait longer to get a small forward that can help you. You could wait longer to get a big forward that can help you, or even a shooting guard. Point guards are a little bit like quarterbacks. There aren't a whole lot of them out there that are going to take you where you need to go. So perhaps one of these guys I mentioned is that guy, or maybe someone has not entered the portal yet will be that guy. But I think this week, when we follow and track what Carolina's doing in the portal, point guard's going to have to be important. The rest of the dudes got to know who they're going to be playing with. It's like receivers got to know who's throwing them the ball. The rest of these guys got to know who's going to run the show. So point guard, a priority this week, because Carolina needs a point guard. There's some other names of guys out there you would like to see Carolina pursue. Go ahead and throw them in here. I didn't narrow it to just these guys because I think only these guys can help or could be available. They're just guys I want to talk about in this specific daily drop. But we are open to all names, all ideas, all suggestions, and offer your thoughts on Facebook, on our YouTube channel, on Twitter, and also on our free and premium message boards at TarHeelIllustrated.com. And remember, guys, for $8.33 a month, you can get a 1-year subscription to THI, and you can be a Tar Heel insider too. I'm AJ, and I appreciate you stopping by.